About these wonderful trends, and you said you had one that has already graduated, and
No, I have a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old.
well, my name is Kevin, last name Bukatman. The name of my company is College Planning Service America, and I've been doing this for about 13 years. I have a lot of really great families that I've worked with. I have about 200 clients right now. I speak all over the 4 states and Michigan, California, wherever I'm invited, I'll go out and speak, especially about things that have changed over the last 10 years that I think you're going to see. So the insights that I'm going to give you tonight are based on everything that we're talking about in terms of financial aid. And if you have any questions, please ask them as we go along. It'll be a lot easier. So the first thing you'll notice is that the volume of college applications is increasing, and it does usually every year. However, the last few years it's increased a lot. And the reason why is because, well, our generation is not used to doing things except kind of handwriting everything out, putting a stamp on it and mailing it. But nowadays more colleges are using the Common App and online applications, coalition application. There's a number of foreign students that's increased over the last 5 or 10 years. So these factors make the application pools larger, more competitive, and that does affect ability of students to get in.
About what percentage of schools are using the Common App, or is it mostly state schools?
No, as a matter of fact, it's up to over 800 schools right now, and it's increasing all the time. This year, for the first time, Penn State and Pitt, both are now using it rather than their own applications. You can use a school's application itself, but the Common App is so much easier to do for a student.
Is that Naviance you're talking about?
No, Naviance is the sort of repository for the things that your students want to put in, like letters of recommendation and the transcripts and things like that. What the Common App is, and you can Google just Common Application, and the website will come up. It is an application that is accepted by all of these schools, so all you have to do is list the schools, fill out the application once, which includes things like student data, parent data, testing results, the activities that the students do, and the essay. And they can put it all together and send it out to all the schools simultaneously. And the great thing about it is that it doesn't let you submit it until everything is ready to go. So you can't get an incomplete application sent out. It just won't allow you to do it. So it works out very, very well. So the hard and soft factors that we talk about, the hard factors are the things that you're used to seeing, the grade point average, the SAT and ACT results. I don't know if Phoenixville does class ranking or not, but those are the 3 factors that are called the hard factors, and that's what most public universities like Shippensburg and Penn State and Pitt, those are the ones that kind of look at those numbers because they get tens of thousands of applicants. The soft factors are the things like the essay and what is now called demonstrated interest. In the old days, you could throw an application in, it was put into the pool, and that was fine. Nowadays, what schools want to see in a lot of cases is the student interested enough to visit the campus? Is the student interested enough to write our essays and make them very specific to what we're asking, which I'll show you in a moment? So these are things that are very important, because in the old days, those essays were essentially how I spent my summer vacation, or what major would I like to pursue. But now, all these schools that are out there are now making their essay questions very specific about what the student sees as an opportunity at their particular university. So expect to see more quirky essays. Why University of Pittsburgh? Why Carnegie Mellon? And you'll see what I'm talking about right here. For example, University of Southern California got with the times, and their essay was create a 140-character tweet to describe yourself. That was their essay, okay? But yet, other essays were things like, why are you applying to Carnegie Mellon University? What major are you intending to pursue? Why do you think that you're a good fit for Carnegie Mellon? So you can't just write, well, the grass is green, it's Pittsburgh, wonderful. They want to know, did you research what the names of the schools are, a professor that might be teaching them in a particular subject area, maybe what they published, and again, relating it to the university itself. University of Chicago writes, for example, University of Chicago provides a tremendous learning environment. What about our learning environment attracted you to apply? So again, specifically for that university, you'd have to take a look and see it was because of the tremendous technology and great co-op opportunities, things like that. But again, being very specific about the school. Now, early admissions options are increasing tremendously. And the two early action and early decision, those are the two early admission things that we talk about. If you're familiar with them, early decision is where student can apply to one school. And they actually make you sign a waiver that says, if we accept you, this is where you're going, you have to rip up all your other applications. With early action, you can apply to as many schools as possible, and if you get in, you're not bound to go. So the student can apply early, have a better chance of acceptance, and not have to commit to that particular school. So the early decision and early action deadlines are earlier than, of course, regular, usually around November 1st. And if you get that in, most schools will let you know, probably no later than Christmas, about whether the student is accepted or not, which is in many cases way before regular admission students hear about that. So the best advice I can give students is to apply to at least one school early, and early action I think is more preferable so that you're not kind of contracted to be to that school and be at their mercy for financial aid.
So if you're rejected by Christmas, then you're open to apply to any place else?
Not only that, but they may even put you into the regular applicant pool
Okay.
For consideration then. So the problem, as I mentioned with early decision, is that again, you don't have the ability to compare financial aid awards. You're really bound to go to that school. But the major problem for families is that the trade-off, if you apply early, is that most of the applicant pools at schools like American University, George Washington, BU, the Ivy Leagues, they take a tremendous percentage of those early applicants, leaving very few seats left for regular decision. That's the trade-off. That's what they're hoping that students will apply early so they can fill those slots a lot faster and kind of know where everything is going at that point. Rolling admissions is the exact opposite, meaning that public universities and a lot of private universities as well, Penn State, Pitt, Westchester, etc., if you get everything in, so the student gets in their application, letters of recommendation, the essay, transcript is sent by the guidance department, all that goes in, these admissions committees will sit down immediately, review all the information, and let the student know if they're in or out. So for example, Penn State opens their applications on August 1st, and they begin letting their next class know on September 1st. So the sooner students get that stuff in, the sooner they'll have a few acceptances in their back pocket. And as you can see, many really excellent schools are rolling admissions. So a very good thing to know. The national acceptance rate is about 66%, meaning 2 out of 3 students will usually get into the schools that they want to, but 1 out of 3 don't. And especially those top 100 schools, that number kind of drops a little bit because that is an average. So acceptance rates help a university's brand by making them look more selective, which is why your students have probably begun getting all sorts of stuff in the mail, courtesy of College Board, as soon as they signed up for their SATs. And so what happens is all of these universities get the information, send out all of these brochures and everything to the students in the hope that they'll at least consider attending the university or applying. But again, the problem is that the more a university makes it easier to apply, for example, they may say, we'll waive the essay, we'll waive the application fee, just send us an application, we'll let you know in 2 weeks. Well, what they're doing is setting the kid up for failure. Because a lot of those, a lot of universities will basically say, thanks, but no thanks. But then what that does is it shows that they're more selective, which is really bogus if you kind of follow how that works. Because you have 10,000 applicants for 4,000 spaces, but the school then opens it up for 20,000 applicants, and they're still rejecting the same number of applicants for the same, 4,000 openings, well, it looks like they're much more selective. So again, my advice is, instead of 5 or 6 schools, the students should be applying to 8 to 10 schools to make sure that they're having a good selection of acceptances, and then they can review awards and things like that. Now, one thing I'll say about acceptance rate is that there's a major difference between what we're talking about, an acceptance rate, and an individual student's chances of acceptance. Think about that. We can take a general number on acceptance rate, but if we look at each individual student, maybe their chances are greater because of better extracurricular activities, higher test scores, more interest, as opposed to another student who may have higher test scores, but put that down as a safety school, essentially saying, only as a last resort would I attend there. So there's a major difference there. So when we talk about acceptance rates, I'd rather talk about an individual student's chances of getting into a particular school rather than the overall acceptance rate at a university. And this is what I was talking about, recruiting to deny. Okay, so Boston University, 64,000 applicants for 15,000 acceptances. Richmond, 10,000 acceptances, applications for 3,200 acceptances. And of course, any of the Ivy League schools have a 5 or 6% acceptance rate. So again, those test optional schools or schools that invite students to apply are only doing it to build up the number of applicants for the same number of slots that they're competing for. Students should begin thinking about what a realistic college list is, and these are the factors that are all included. So it's not just I like the weather or I like the university. What we're talking about is a student and family. They want to be near, far, they want to be in an urban environment, suburban environment. How big or small the school is. Some students thrive in a smaller environment. Some people want, the large university. What is their average SAT and ACT scores? How selective are they? That's what we were talking about before. The diversity of the student body, whether it's a public or private university. I use a College Board website, and the College Board website can give you information about the most popular majors. It's called Big Future. So if you Google Big Future, you can go on and find out statistics and information about any university in the US and Canada. So the most popular majors, if a student wants to be a business major, well, you better make sure that the business major is one of the 1, 2, or top 3 majors, because that's where they're throwing the millions of dollars in. Every school has a psychology department, but if you have a school that doesn't look at psychology as a real major, so to speak, you can wind up with a psychology department with 2 professors. If the student's a psychology major and one of the professors doesn't get along with the student, there's a major problem there.
Is that Big Future?
Big Future, correct. All schools have co-ops and internships, even if Drexel insists that they're the only ones. Drexel does a great job of advertising their co-ops and internships. But again, all schools have them, and so it's an important consideration. And also, what's the percentage and amount of their average scholarships to make it as affordable as possible? The other ones on the right side of the screen, those are sort of less important, but still, in the running. Whether the student's going to be living on or off campus, what kinds of activities and clubs does the university include? Does the student want that big rah-rah experience like at Penn State, or a smaller experience like Elizabethtown? Some students like one over the other. Do they want Greek life, fraternities and sororities? Important for parents and students. What are the support services offered? Is it free tutorials? Do they have mentor programs? Are they really watching out for these students? So if they're having a problem in a class, there's some place for them to go that's not going to cost them anything. And then, of course, going to the placement office. And the question that parents have to ask is, in 6 months after my student graduates in the major of fill in the blank, what are the percentages that they have a job in their field? Because if you go in and ask the generic question, within 6 months of graduation, will my student have a job? Well, they can say with virtual certainty, yes, they will. It could be Lowe's, McDonald's, Burger King, or anything like that, but they're not lying, that is a job. But I think after paying what we pay for college these days, you'd want them to be in the field and in their major and doing something that has to do with what they went to school for. Some of the big name colleges everybody knows about, but sometimes a student has sort of an off the beaten path major. And here are some of them right here. So aviation, and now business is, usually one of the most popular majors, but sometimes there are specific business sub-majors underneath those. Computer science, fashion, film, musical theater, video game design. There are a lot of smaller universities that do these better than the major universities. Now, these majors in the last 5 years and for the next decade are where the jobs are going to be. Now, I'm not saying this is the only group of jobs available, but these are things that probably when we went to school way back when weren't even available. So things like biometrics, forensic science, computer game, web design, cybersecurity, business analytics, robotics, and sustainability are all virtually new and have tremendous upside in terms of majors. So sometimes when a student is undecided or not sure, we rely too much on, well, do you like business, do you like education, things that are sort of tried and true. But these days, it's really worth it to delve a little deeper and get students excited about jobs and careers that are going to be there for the foreseeable future. I spoke in Michigan recently and found out that Northern Michigan University has a brand new major, and you can guess what it is based on the cannabis plant on the lower left-hand side. It is a BS in medicinal plant chemistry, which is an actual thing, given it's a billion dollar industry coming up. And take a look, it's no joke in terms of what the majors are: gas and liquid chromatography, atomic spectrometry, chemistry 420, 420 being, of course, April 20th, Earth Day, that's what it stands for. So again, here's what universities are doing to attract students that would be a little bit, again, off the beaten path. But certainly you can see with the legalization of marijuana, not getting into politics, but if it's out there, it may be something that the student may want to consider. Now, sometimes families ask me, how many AP classes should a student take? Now, if a student is not interested or that great a student, they don't have to take AP classes. But yeah, some students who think that they must take every class has to be an AP class. And there's no exact number to get into these elite schools. Now, I'm not sure with Phoenixville, for example, how many AP classes they offer.
A lot.
Okay?
I think that's one of the things they brag about that they do.
And you know what? I think that since Dr. Parkinson became the principal.
Believe me, it's changed a lot between my first daughter.
I figured.
It's a totally different school.
Yep, and so he probably brought that in, and again, so that depends on the number of classes offered and the number of AP classes taken by the students. So there are some schools, like Phoenixville we'll use as an example, that said, wow, a lot of them have a lot of offerings. You may have another school district that because of budget concerns or whatever, they don't offer a lot. And they only offer a small select for a small select few of students. And again, that's taken under advisement by college admissions committees. Big ethnicity and cultural things these days in terms of answering questions and essays and things like that about any background that a student has other than white Caucasian. And so again, right or wrong, it's here in terms of diversity. And I think that, again, if a student has a story to tell, universities and colleges definitely want to hear about that. So I always kid families about getting their ancestry.com and all the little tests that you can do to find out what percentage you are from what part of the world. And these days it never hurts to be American Eskimo or Native American or things like that, because obviously universities and colleges want to have diversity. And so even if there's a little bit in there, listen, it's a leg up over somebody else.
But you run for office, you have to prove it.
That's very true, that's very true. We can
I
ask
mean-
Elizabeth more on that.
My daughter's adopted, so she has actually dual citizenship.
My son's adopted.
Does
so
that help?
same
I mean,
question.
we've talked about, my wife and I kind of joked that she's Ukrainian, she should.
Yeah, absolutely.
She should apply as a Ukrainian citizen instead of
That-
American.
You have to, you have to. It just gives them a leg up, and it's not anything wrong with that. As a matter of fact, it helps, because again, all these colleges and universities, the more diverse they can be, the better it is for them. And so, yes, I would definitely use that in the application process. And we see them in terms of the groups that admissions directors are targeting. All right, transfer students, minority students, first generation college students if the parents didn't go to college, out of state, international, if they're recruited because of merit scholarships. And obviously, schools would love nothing more to have all families have the ability to pay without having to give out any scholarships. But we know that that's not true. Students should be reminded that admissions directors are checking social media. 90% of admissions directors are viewing online footprints. Now, that doesn't mean that if a student has a website, for example, and there's a password to get in for their friends, where they keep more hidden things, admissions directors are not interested in that. All they're going to do is just put in the name and whatever pops up. And unfortunately, if it's something that's going to be embarrassing for the student, then that's going to be bad news and taken under advisement. Extracurricular activities. On the common application, for example, there are 10 slots for activities. Does that mean a student has to have 10? No. But if they have 5 or 6 really excellent ones that they've done for 3 or 4 years, that's excellent. What they're looking for is the quality, not the quantity. And so 8 to 10 these days would be perfect, showing that the student has some depth to them, focusing on extracurriculars. And if there is no extracurricular or club that the student is interested in, they should be encouraged to start their own. Now, the levels of participation range from level 4, just being a member of the club, which is sort of what I say, just a club type of thing. Level 3 is low-level leadership, like being the secretary or treasurer of a club or team, and that's like the JV. There's some competition involved, but not a lot. Level 2 is high-level leadership, like the president of a club, president of the student body, things of that nature. And maybe I'm a member of Future Business Leaders of America, so if they students have taken part in state-level competition and won some awards, that's like, again, a varsity type of thing. And then level 1 for the top students that are looking for national recognition, hundreds of students getting involved in whatever they're doing, and national competition and awards, that's like being an All-American. So any of these participatory levels is excellent, but obviously the more leadership shown, probably the more scholarship opportunities that would be available for a student. I like to say that corners and edges is better than just being well-rounded. So if a student brings something a little bit different to the table and on their applications, that means a lot. So if they have part-time jobs, that's just as good as being in a club because it shows they can multitask. If they are playing a sport, working on the school newspaper, the radio station, things like that, again, it's not the number of activities, it's the ability to do different activities at the highest level possible. 3 great ways to show a college it's your top choice. Number 1 is visiting the campus, but I'll give you a little asterisk to that in a minute. Again, if you're able to visit a campus, most schools will like that. And again, I'll show you that there's a little difference in that in a minute. They can arrange an interview either on campus or through a local alumna or alumnus of the school at a Starbucks or something like that. And also writing a great over-the-top personal statement or essay. These are the 3 things that would separate student applicants from each other. As I said before, visiting a college counts more at less selective schools. So for example, if a student was going to be applying to the University of Pennsylvania, they don't really care whether the student visits or not because they know that the applicant pool is quite exceptional. But what they would like to see is an interview. And the interview, even though it's not going to make a huge difference unless the student is late and rude, things like that, it does give somebody the ability to see what that student is, eyeball them, and kind of confirm what they already knew through the application. But again, less selective schools, better for students to go visit. Leadership. I have students that I work with from Stoneman Douglas High School out of Florida, and they're the ones who started the March for Our Lives movement. So whereas we remember Columbine 20 years ago, that there was outrage but nothing much happened because of it. Now we have the March for Our Lives, where all over the country students were engaged and marching and speaking out about gun violence. So again, very, very big difference, because now these admissions committees are looking for the initiative, the influence, the integrity, rather than just being a member of 20 organizations and doing some work for each of them. Now, you may have a student who is not a so-called leader. In other words, maybe not a president or anything like that. But believe it or not, introverted team members are admitted to great schools just as often as leaders are. And I have to explain that to students at conferences that I speak at, because a lot of them feel if I'm not the leader, if I'm not out front, I don't have as great a chance as one of my classmates who's been the president of our class for the last 3 or 4 years. Well, if the student shows that they're passionate about collaborative teamwork, if they work well on their own in the lab, if they have individual personal projects that they're proud of and were successful at, that's extremely important. So, again, for students that are not the leader of the pack, they still need quality team players, and they like collaborative students who can play nicely in the sandbox. There's the Common App that I was talking about before. Okay, 800 schools use it, and as I said, the preponderance of schools probably in the next 2 or 3 years are going to use it. So less and less will there be applications for each school. But a new one is the Coalition app. The Coalition app, because schools are now asking maybe not for a written essay, but more of show us a 3-minute video. Or if they're a music or art major consideration, they'll want to see a portfolio, or they'll want to see a recital or something like that. So this Coalition app, which has 170 member universities and is also part of that Common App grouping, they now have the ability to upload data and upload all sorts of things right onto the application. So a student can not only submit the written application, but have a visual or media piece to it as well. So again, very important. And when we talk about technology, Zemi, for example, is the data point that is used to post the videos and pictures. Khan Academy, if you've never heard of that, that's the gazillionaire Khan, has SAT and ACT prep online for free. And then Scholly is a really interesting story. A young man named Christopher Gray wanted to attend Drexel University, couldn't afford it. And so his mother said, go out and find scholarships. So the young man went out and found over $1 million worth of scholarships. And he was interested in giving back to the community, so to speak. So he went on Shark Tank and was asking for $40,000 for a 20% stake in a company he was forming to create a smartphone app that would help students like himself find scholarships. And all 5 sharks bought into it. He certainly is quite rich by now. And for $2.99 download, you can download the Scholly app that has over 12,000 scholarships, among other things on it. So all of these things, again, is waves of the future. Now, a lot of times families are always concerned about this process and the difference between when we went to school and even when your oldest went to school, within the last 5 or 10 years. So college admissions process is always changing, which we know it is, so you want to keep up with the latest trends, which is why you're here tonight. The child is smart, but will he or she stand out with the extracurriculars? Kind of went into how they can kind of make themselves stand out a little bit. My child puts things off to the last minute. Now, we know that your students don't do that, and I know my students never did that, and I'd be lying through my teeth if I said that wasn't true. But for example, when you think of the phrase, "I've got plenty of time," that to you and me probably means I've got a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, you know, I have plenty of time to take care of whatever project I'm up to. I know you've had this happen where your child has come down to dinner and you or your wife maybe turn around and said, "Hey, your senior project, isn't that due tomorrow?" And it's 8 o'clock at night, and what does the student say to you? "I've got plenty of time." They'll stay up all night, they'll get it completed, they'll turn it in, they'll come home, and they'll sleep for 3 days. But that's for them, "I've got plenty of time." College essays are getting tougher. Child is not the greatest writer. Well, I read 1,000 essays every year. And it's not that I'm ghostwriting them, I'm helping the student to make sure that their voice is being heard. The grammatical stuff, that's easy to fix. But what the student wants to tell in terms of their story, the essay is probably the second most important piece of real estate on that application. And the more personal the story, whether it's about them being adopted or something that happened to them or a life-changing event or the reason why they're choosing a particular major, that's their story. And interestingly enough, many students will be at ease showing a very poignant and very personal essay story to a room full of strangers, which is the admissions committee, but they won't let you see it. This is true with my daughter. Look, I'm the expert, okay? She says, "I don't want you to read it." Not that she was being nasty, she says, "I wrote it and it's for their eyes." Totally understand, that's fine. She got in where she wanted to go, so that's terrific. But I mean, so I said, just make sure somebody proofreads it to make sure grammatically it's fine. And then should you seek professional and personalized guidance, that's why I'm here. And I'll explain my service in a moment, but these are the concerns that parents have every time a student goes through the college process. But the great thing is that students should understand that it is getting easier. It is stressful, it is frustrating, it is time consuming. But you know what? With all the different things that are happening, all these colleges and universities are trying to make it as easy and as stress-free as possible to get the applications completed and submitted. And so that way a student doesn't obsess over a particular school or something like that, or I can't do this or I won't do that. It's very important for them to understand that it's getting better and it will continue to in the long run. So again, they have to understand though that they control the process. We as parents can act as advocates to an extent, but we shouldn't be the ones who are writing their essays or typing in their applications or, we already went to school. It's their turn. And life's lessons are learned, and we would love as parents to protect them all the time from everything and make sure everything was perfect and wonderful and every day was sunny. It doesn't happen that way. Students have to learn at some point that it's their responsibility. And sometimes I get parents, and they used to be called helicopter parents, but now we can call them in the 21st century drone parents. These drone parents are the ones that, are hovering and making sure that, get this done, do this, here's your schedule. Unless they're gonna be the kid's roommate at school, that's unfair because they're just setting their student up to, now what do? My mom isn't here to harp on me about getting stuff done and getting up for class and doing my homework and all that good stuff. And we've all been there and seen that. So there are some times that there are consequences, and unfortunately it can be negative consequences if you miss a deadline, if you don't get an application in, if you do things that you're not supposed to do. Look, 13 years I've been doing this. Twice I've had students get into really great schools and then decide for their spring semester or their senior year not to go to class, or not to go to gym, or not turn in assignments. And then what happens is their transcripts are sent to the college and university, and 2 times the college and university said, if this is the real you, we don't want you. And they rescinded their acceptance. So students have to understand there are consequences, both good and bad, for doing the right thing and the wrong thing. That's my daughter. She graduated from the State University of New York in a town called Oneonta. which is Seneca Indian tribe. And if you speak Seneca, Oneonta, I believe, means we're building a casino here also. Okay, but she graduated in 2013, yeah, and she is now in a field after graduating in 4 years, and has her own apartment and pays her own rent, has her own car, pays her own car payment, has a 401k, and is happy. So all of those things are extremely important. That's what I wish for all the students that, you know, apply for college, go to college, and hopefully do well. So that's my office address. The blue cards that you have entitle you to a free consultation. Again, we're not that far away, and this could be in an evening or a Saturday. Bring the student, bring the family. We'll talk about your particular situation. I am a fee for service, meaning that if you need my services, I'm quite reasonable compared to, and I won't even say I have competitors. There are other people who do what I do, but I don't think they do it as well. And so my fees are quite reasonable depending on the level of service that you would need. And it's a one-time fee, it's not an annual type of thing. And again, just the ability to understand that I'm a resource for you and be able to work with you if you need it. But after the free consultation, if you feel, you know what, I've got a handle on it, I'm pretty good to go, I'm not going to be pressuring anybody to do anything. I'm just here as, again, give you the best information possible. Okay?
I kind of wish I brought my son with me tonight.
Well, again, if you want to bring him in, we can talk and I can get him, you know, excited about the process and hear what he has to say and give you a reasonable idea of what it'll cost you and his chances of getting into some of the schools he's considering. And the same thing for you as well. All right? Cool.
Is that still rolling? Okay. I didn't want to be recorded with some of my questions.
Oh, but you're not on camera.
I know.
Well, we could end it and thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm
Answer-
sorry, but